Naomi Judd, a country music queen with a radiant smile and a voice that touched millions of hearts. But behind the dazzling stage lights lay unseen battles, hidden secrets, and unimaginable pain. Her life story isn't just a journey to the pinnacle of fame. It's a profound tragedy of a soul grappling with darkness, to the point where a shocking death became the final punctuation mark for a legend. What truly happened in her final moments? And why, even in her passing, did Naomi Judd leave behind unsettling questions, revealing a shocking truth about family dynamics and an unprecedented fight for privacy? If you value authentic storytelling, don't forget to support us by liking and subscribing to our channel. After the secret door was ajar, the story begins, not with sorrow, but with the first determined steps of a small-town girl carrying colossal dreams before she became the fierce, glamorous icon known as Naomi Judd. She was Diana Ellen Judd from Ashland, Kentucky, a young mother navigating heartbreak, hardship, and the heavy responsibilities of raising two daughters on her own. Naomi's early life was anything but charmed.
I was raised in genteel poverty we had a nice blue-collar family when I was being raised. But after the age of 18, when I got married and was out in the world on my own, I didn't do too well. And I had a lot of struggles, a lot of financial struggles.
A lot of financial struggles. And she endured a turbulent childhood marked by grief, including the devastating death of her brother from leukemia at just 17. That tragedy, combined with a tense family environment, shaped her into a woman of remarkable resilience. By her early 20s, Naomi was a single mother to Winona and Ashley, with no college degree and no partner to lean on. She juggled multiple jobs from waitressing to nursing, doing whatever was necessary to put food on the table. Their life was nomadic, as they drifted from California to Kentucky and eventually settled in Tennessee.
Ashley and I slept on a mattress on the floor in the little tiny living room, this tiny one-bedroom apartment, and Winona got the little twin bed in the other room. But the stuff that the three of us have been through, fires and floods and earthquakes and no car or clunker cars and having to get our clothes from the Goodwill store.
Yet through every move and every challenge, Naomi held onto a spark within her, a love for music that offered quiet comfort amid the chaos. That spark began to glow brighter when she noticed her daughter Winona's extraordinary voice. What began as casual harmonizing between mother and daughter soon evolved into something much bigger. Their raw talent and emotional depth captivated audiences, and so, the Judds were born. Their rise to stardom during the 1980s was swift and electrifying. Signed by RCA Victor Records, Naomi and Winona quickly became household names.
The clunker cars and having to get our clothes from the Goodwill store and just everything that we've been through has bonded us. I think trust is proof of real love, and we definitely have that. So that when all of a sudden Winona gets signed to RCA Records, we get signed she's out of high school.
With 14 #1 hits and 5 Grammy Awards to their name, the Judds transformed into country music royalty. Songs like Mama He's Crazy and Love Can Build a Bridge became cultural touchstones, resonating deeply with fans and earning the duo a lasting place in American music history. Naomi wasn't just a musical force, she was a trailblazer. In a male-dominated industry, she stood tall with charm, wit, and boldness, but beneath that strong exterior was a far more vulnerable reality. As the world applauded her success, few realized the emotional weight she was quietly carrying. Naomi's journey from Diana Judd to country legend was nothing short of extraordinary. But even the brightest stars sometimes hide the deepest shadows. But that radiant success, Naomi Judd's dazzling public image and unshakable boldness, couldn't forever mask the darkness that had quietly begun to encroach. Fame, it turned out, came at a price, and while the spotlight bathed her in applause, a storm was silently gathering behind the curtain. In 1991, just as the Judds stood at the pinnacle of their success, Naomi shocked the world with an announcement that felt like an emotional gut punch. She was retiring from music. Fans were stunned. How could a story so full of momentum, so vibrant and victorious, come to a halt? The reason for her sudden departure was as heartbreaking as it was unexpected. Naomi had been diagnosed with hepatitis C, a serious, potentially fatal bloodborne illness. The infection, she revealed, was likely a consequence of her years working as a registered nurse, long before the music career took off.
Actually, when I was diagnosed, the Mayo Clinic did a pathology report, a liver biopsy, and the pathology report said that I'd had it longer than we even knew at the time. I've probably had it since 1986.
Right.
The diagnosis collided brutally with her soaring fame, yanking her off the stage she had fought so hard to reach. She stepped back, not because the music faded, but because her health demanded it, and having to stop performing music because of illness caused her a lot of pain. And when asked in an interview,
But you had to stop working. How painful was that for you to quit music?
The worst thing that's ever happened to me in my life. The worst, because what I was talking about, to me, this whole gig is communicating with people. It's me sitting down and saying, tell me what you know.
Yeah.
And sharing, you know, and I felt as if
the Judds disbanded. And with that, an era of mother-daughter harmonies that had reshaped country music came to an abrupt end. While Naomi withdrew to battle her illness, Wynonna stepped into her spotlight. Her solo career ignited immediately. Her self-titled debut album rocketed to #1 on the Billboard Country Albums chart, achieving multi-platinum status. It was a testament to Wynonna's undeniable vocal strength, but also to the foundation laid by the Judds' legacy, a legacy Naomi helped build from the ground up. Though Naomi was no longer a full-time performer, she didn't disappear. Over the years, she and Wynonna would reunite for special appearances, réunion tour, and televised events, each one stirring deep nostalgia and admiration from fans. Naomi shared that the final song on their final tour was the most fulfilling moment of her life, containing both extreme pain and joy.
it was the most complete moment of my life.
Really?
It was it was the end for me, but it was the beginning for Wynonna. It was the most exquisite pain and the most complete joy at the same time. And thank God that I am a mother, because my motivation always.
The harmonies still rang true, and the public rejoiced in seeing the duo together again. But behind Naomi's bright smile and infectious energy, something was shifting. There were subtle signs at first of an internal battle intensifying. She still radiated strength, but it was increasingly a strength forged in the fire of personal suffering. What the world didn't know, what Naomi herself concealed with tenacious grace, was that the most dangerous fight of her life had only just begun. Her struggle was no longer with a physical illness, but with an invisible enemy, one rooted not in the body, but in the mind. While she had successfully undergone treatment and achieved remission from hepatitis C, the deeper wounds had only begun to surface. By the late 1990s and into the early 2000s, Naomi began to experience symptoms that defied easy explanation. Persistent anxiety plagued her, followed by terrifying panic attacks that left her physically and emotionally spent. Then came the deep fatigue, not just tiredness, but a profound exhaustion that drained her energy and blurred the edges of her once vivid spirit. At first, she thought it was lingering burnout, the aftershock of her years on stage, illness, and intense emotional labor. But soon it became clear, this wasn't just stress or sadness. Naomi was battling treatment-resistant depression, a condition so severe that even the most dedicated efforts to manage it often fell short. Eventually, Naomi chose to break her silence. She spoke publicly about her experiences, laying bare the truth of her mental health struggles in hopes of helping others. The diagnosis was harrowing: severe depression, anxiety disorder, panic attacks, and bipolar disorder. These weren't passing afflictions or moments of weakness. They were deeply rooted, debilitating conditions that had reshaped her entire life. Naomi's candor was both brave and heartbreaking. She peeled back the veneer of fame and revealed the crushing weight of invisible suffering. While fans had long admired her for her resilience and charm, they now saw her most human side, a woman battling demons far beyond the public's gaze. And though she faced these illnesses with courage, the relentless grip of mental illness would continue to shadow her life, a silent storm that no applause could quiet, no spotlight could dispel. The mental illness that gripped Naomi Judd wasn't a passing shadow or a bad season. It was an unrelenting siege that spanned decades. In her raw and courageous 2016 memoir, River of Time, My Descent into Depression and How I Emerged with Hope, Naomi tore down the glittering walls of her fame to expose a painful, unvarnished reality. It was a searing account of her inner torment, the kind that fame, wealth, and acclaim couldn't silence. "I would come home," she wrote with aching honesty, "and not leave the house for weeks. I was completely immobilized and didn't know how to ask for help." It's hard to reconcile that image with the Naomi the world thought they knew: radiant, powerful, fearless. Yet behind closed doors, she was battling a darkness so heavy it often made getting out of bed feel impossible. Naomi shared in an interview in 2016 how she talked about her appearance.
It's because I know people will realize I don't look like I usually look. My hands shake real bad. Medication, nothing I can do about it. And my face, I feel like a balloon. My face is all swollen because of the medication. I really haven't been eating ice cream and candy.
On some days, Naomi couldn't even face the daylight. Her once commanding presence was overtaken by inertia, a paralyzing force that left her confined to her bedroom.
Because they see me in rhinestones, with glitter in my hair. That really is who I am. But then I would come home and not leave the house for 3 weeks and not get out of my pajamas and not practice normal hygiene.
On other days, she'd summon just enough energy to step into the public eye, smile brightly for cameras, and give cheerful interviews only to collapse in tears the moment the spotlight faded. The duality was heartbreaking. Naomi, once the fiery matriarch of country music's most beloved duo, was waging a silent, invisible war. The medical response to her suffering was both aggressive and desperate. She was prescribed a complex mix of medications, antidepressants, anti-anxiety drugs, mood stabilizers, an arsenal of pharmaceutical hope. But these treatments often felt like throwing a rope into a bottomless pit. Sometimes they helped, offering brief respites from the storm. But just as often, the fog would return, heavier than before. Naomi cycled through therapists, psychiatrists, and treatment programs, each one bringing a flicker of hope that eventually dimmed.
Because what I've been through is extreme. My final diagnosis was severe depression, treatment resistant, because they tried me on every single thing they had in their arsenal. They really felt like if I lived through this.
Outpatient treatment wasn't enough. At the most desperate points in her struggle, she voluntarily admitted herself to psychiatric hospitals, places she described not as sanctuaries, but as battlegrounds where she sought shelter from her mind. The burden of carrying this pain for so long began to erode her most precious relationships. The relentless pressure of public life, unresolved childhood trauma, the physical toll of illness, and the emotional exhaustion of keeping up appearances created deep cracks in her sense of self and in her family life. Naomi, who had once seemed to hold her family together with sheer will, started to retreat. The woman who had championed mother-daughter unity on stage began to feel unreachable, even to her daughters, Winona and Ashley. Winona, ever the soulful powerhouse, struggled with her demons. and the increasingly complicated relationship with her mother. But it was Ashley who perhaps felt the most invisible, often describing herself as the forgotten Judd. Ashley's childhood was marked by instability and emotional neglect. In her memoir, All That Is Bitter and Sweet, Ashley shared her perspective. Growing up often felt chaotic and lonely. With Naomi focused either on survival or chasing dreams, Ashley was shuffled between relatives, sent to boarding schools, and left to navigate her formative years largely on her own. While Naomi and Winona toured the country, winning awards and commanding stages, Ashley watched from afar. Her journey diverged early. She pursued academics, studying at the University of Kentucky before launching a successful acting career in Los Angeles. In building a life outside of the Judd spotlight, she also began her process of healing, separate from the fame and dysfunction that shaped her youth. Meanwhile, Naomi's physical health remained a persistent concern. Though she achieved remission from hepatitis C, the illness had left a lasting toll on her immune system and vitality. Chronic pain, unrelenting fatigue, and a disorienting brain fog often compounded her mental anguish. The feedback loop was cruel. Physical symptoms exacerbated the depression, and the depression made managing her physical health even harder. Naomi once described her condition as living in a tunnel where the light at the end never came. Yet she didn't stop trying. From conventional medicine to cutting-edge treatments and holistic approaches, she pursued every possible form of healing. There were better periods, good weeks, even good months. She would venture out, attend events, enjoy nature walks, and make plans. But just when hope began to bloom, the shadow would creep back in. What made all of this even harder was the immense pressure to appear whole. Naomi Judd wasn't just a person. She was a public figure, a symbol of triumph over adversity, and a country music icon. That image left little room for imperfection or struggle. She felt compelled to perform resilience, even when she was unraveling inside. The sequins, the smile, the stage presence, they became armor, hiding the raw pain underneath. Every time she was praised as inspirational, a part of her ached, knowing how close she often felt to giving up. Still, she kept going. Year after year, she fought to survive, to reclaim joy, to stay present for the people who loved her, even when that love felt out of reach. But this was a war that didn't relent, and eventually, Naomi Judd, the fighter, the dreamer, the voice of comfort to millions, reached a day when her strength simply ran out. The years of Naomi Judd's private struggle were long, brutal, and often invisible, but nothing could have prepared her family or the world for what happened on the 30th of April. That date, once anticipated as a crowning moment of glory for the Judds, became a tragic milestone instead. On the eve of her long-awaited induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, Naomi Judd, one half of the legendary mother-daughter duo, took her own life. It was a devastating blow that sent shockwaves through the music industry and shattered the hearts of her family, fans, and peers alike. That Saturday seemed deceptively peaceful. Zunlit, serene. Like any other spring day in Tennessee, Naomi was at her home in Leiper's Fork, a secluded and picturesque property nestled among trees, about 40 minutes southwest of Nashville. This quiet retreat had once represented a sanctuary for her, a place to breathe, heal, and retreat from the demanding world of fame. But over time, the very solitude that she craved became an isolating force within those silent walls. Naomi had too much time to dwell on the endless cycle of her thoughts that had grown increasingly dark despite the approaching celebration of her life's work. Ashley Judd, Naomi's younger daughter, had come over that morning. It wasn't out of the ordinary. Ashley often checked in, sensing when her mother might need company. Their relationship, once strained, had grown more compassionate and intimate in recent years. Ashley had developed a kind of emotional radar when it came to Naomi. She could detect the smallest changes in mood or energy, the faintest tremors beneath the surface. That morning, Something felt off. Naomi wasn't chatty. The usual sparkle in her eyes. The quick humor. Even her distinctive way of filling a room with her energy, it were all missing. Instead, she was quiet, detached, her movements restless and disjointed. Ashley would later recall that her mother seemed to be struggling just to stay grounded. She was pacing, her anxiety almost palpable. At one point, Naomi said something that chilled Ashley. She didn't want to be here anymore. The rawness of that statement didn't just unsettle Ashley, it terrified her. She had heard versions of it before, but this time it landed differently. There was a finality in her tone, a heaviness that suggested a decision had already been made. Still, for a while, a fragile calm returned. Naomi began talking about the reasons she had kept going for so long, the love for her daughters, the hope that the pain might one day relent, the joy she occasionally still found in life's quieter moments. "You don't have to worry about me, Mom. I'm okay. I'm okay," she said softly. The words felt rehearsed, as if she were trying to convince herself as much as Ashley, and then, almost as if she couldn't hold the weight of her pain alone anymore. She looked at Ashley and gently asked, "Will you stay with me?"
So I was at the house visiting, as I am every day, and Mom said to me, "Will you stay with me?" And I said, "Of course I will."
Ashley did. She stayed close, gently orbiting her mother in those tense, quiet hours, trying to be a steady presence. They spoke a little more, shared small, tender moments in the stillness. At some point, Naomi told her she was going to rest upstairs. It was the kind of ordinary moment that didn't raise alarms, just a quiet pause in a long and emotionally draining day. Not long after, a family friend came by. Ashley went upstairs to let her mother know, but those few minutes away were enough to change everything. When Ashley returned to the room, she found her mother collapsed on the floor. Naomi had used a firearm to end her life. In that instant, Ashley's world shattered. Panic surged through her. She rushed to her mother's side, heart pounding, hands shaking, voice cracking, as she called 911.
I went upstairs to let her know that the friend was there, and I discovered her. I have both grief and trauma from discovering her.
Despite her horror, she found Naomi still barely alive. For nearly 30 excruciating minutes, Ashley did everything she could to comfort and hold her mother in those final, heart-wrenching moments. She talked to her, sobbed beside her, and told her it was okay. Okay to let go. Okay to stop fighting after so many years of suffering. "I've seen how much you've been hurting," she whispered through her tears, offering love, forgiveness, and the kind of permission only a daughter can give in a moment like that. Afterward, Ashley would speak publicly about that day, sharing her heartbreak with a mix of grief and raw honesty. "I was the one who discovered her. I have both grief and trauma," she said. Those final moments, as harrowing as they were, have become a permanent part of her story. A painful, intimate memory that holds both the unbearable end of her mother's pain and the beginning of her new chapter of mourning. For Ashley, for Winona, and countless others, the 30th of April will never be just another day. It was the day Naomi Judd, after a lifetime of battling inner demons, finally laid down her armor. When paramedics and police officers arrived at Naomi Judd's secluded Tennessee estate, the truth that everyone feared was confirmed. Naomi Judd, beloved country music icon, had died by suicide. At 76 years old, her extraordinary life, one filled with dazzling achievements, public adoration, and private anguish, had come to a heartbreaking and irreversible end. A self-inflicted gunshot wound had silenced the voice that had moved millions. Nearby, authorities discovered a handwritten note, a farewell letter, never fully revealed to the public. Its contents, though largely undisclosed, spoke volumes. According to family sources, it contained the words of someone who had endured a pain far deeper than most could comprehend. This was not a case of passing sadness or fleeting despair. Naomi Judd had suffered from mental illness for decades, grappling with conditions like severe depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and bipolar disorder. Behind the curtain of fame and glamour, the red hair, the captivating smile, the radiant stage presence was a woman locked in a long, lonely battle with her mind. For years, she had done everything in her power to fight that battle. She had spoken publicly about her struggles, undergone therapy, taken medication, and been hospitalized. The toxicology report confirmed the presence of prescription drugs consistent with the treatment of her diagnoses. These medications were not a sign of weakness or defeat. On the contrary, they were a reflection of her resilience and her commitment to surviving, despite the unbearable weight she carried. Her tragic death, just one day before her induction into the Country Music Hall of Fame, alongside her daughter Winona, stunned the world. The timing made the loss even more poignant. This was supposed to be a moment of triumph, the culmination of decades of musical brilliance and personal endurance. Instead, it became a moment of national mourning. For those who had read her candid memoirs or followed her mental health advocacy, the news was not entirely shocking. Naomi had never sugarcoated her journey, but the finality of her departure, on the eve of an event that symbolized everything she had worked for, cut deeply. Despite their overwhelming grief, Winona and Ashley Judd attended the induction ceremony as scheduled, dressed in black, their faces etched with sorrow. They stood before an audience still reeling from the news. Ashley, always articulate, addressed the crowd with raw honesty. "Today, we sisters experienced a tragedy. We lost our beautiful mother to the disease of mental illness." Her words were unfiltered and direct, breaking through the polite silence that often surrounds suicide. Winona, meanwhile, made a vow through her tears. She would continue to sing, her voice, trembling with emotion, echoed with the weight of a promise to preserve her mother's legacy. Together, the sisters recited Psalm 23, its timeless verses offering a sliver of comfort in a sea of grief. But the aftermath of Naomi's passing was far more complicated than a single day of mourning. As per protocol, the police documented everything. What Naomi's grieving family did not realize in those immediate hours was that all of it, every anguished cry, every whispered prayer, every desperate attempt to make sense of the unthinkable, was being recorded. These recordings, intended for procedural review, quickly became part of the public record. This meant they were accessible to anyone: journalists, curious citizens, even internet trolls. When Ashley learned that these intimate, traumatic moments could become public, her world shattered all over again. She described the emotional impact as being ripped open, a complete physical and emotional collapse. For Ashley, this was more than grief. It was a violation. She had already endured the trauma of discovering her mother after the fatal shot, of calling 911, of trying desperately to keep her mother alive. Now, she faced the cruel possibility that those moments would be scrutinized by strangers, turned into clickbait, or sensationalized for public consumption. The Judd family knew they had to act. They filed a lawsuit to prevent the release of the police body cam footage, interviews, and photographs. They argued that the right to grieve in peace outweighed the public's right to know. But Tennessee law was not on their side. Public records statutes favored transparency. And even in the face of profound human suffering, those laws remained inflexible. Despite their best efforts, the family's lawsuit was ultimately dismissed after a court hearing in September. A few media outlets voluntarily withdrew their requests for the images, offering a small measure of relief, but the damage was already done. The emotional toll on the family, especially Ashley, who had taken the brunt of the public scrutiny, was immense. Her grief had been compounded by the fear that her most private pain could be exposed to the world without her consent. In the weeks and months following Naomi's death, more painful revelations surfaced. Among the most shocking was the detail found in her farewell note. Naomi had allegedly requested that Winona not attend her funeral. The meaning behind this request remains unclear, and Winona has not spoken publicly about her reaction. But the emotional weight of such a statement is undeniable. How does one grieve a parent who appears to have pushed them away in their final moments? How does one reconcile decades of collaboration and complex love with such a painful goodbye? Winona and Ashley processed their grief in different ways. Ashley leaned into advocacy and public dialogue, using her platform to talk about mental health and privacy rights for families dealing with traumatic loss. Winona, ever the performer, turned to the stage. She continued her tour, channeling her sorrow into her music, connecting with fans through the only medium that still made sense in the chaos: song. Meanwhile, Naomi's husband, Larry Strickland, offered his perspective. He spoke tearfully about Naomi's behavior in her final days. I noticed a quietness, a withdrawn quality, and a distant look in her eyes. Yet even he, someone who had shared more than 3 decades with her, did not anticipate the tragic outcome. That is perhaps the most insidious part of severe mental illness: its ability to hide in plain sight, to lull even the closest loved ones into thinking things might be okay. Another detail emerged from court filings that added yet another layer to Naomi's already complex legacy. Years earlier, during a marital dispute involving infidelity, Naomi had reportedly fired a gun at Larry. Though it did not result in physical harm, the incident revealed a side of Naomi few knew about: a moment of volatility from a woman under unimaginable pressure. This revelation, though painful, served as a stark reminder. Naomi Judd was human. She was not just a legend or a victim of tragedy. She was a woman who experienced deep love, betrayal, triumph, and despair. Naomi Judd's story is much more than the rise and fall of a country music legend. It's a deeply human tale, revealing the complex reality behind the fame and success of a life filled with incredible achievements, but also marked by painful, private battles. Her journey urges us to see beyond the spotlight and the polished public image, to acknowledge the hidden struggles that many endure, even those who seem to have it all. Naomi's life was a mix of dazzling highs, like the chart-topping success she shared with her daughter Winona as the Judds, and heartbreaking lows shaped by a long and fierce fight with mental illness. She was not just a star, but a mother and a warrior, quietly battling depression and anxiety for decades. Her story isn't simply about fame or tragedy. It's a profound reflection on the human condition, our resilience and vulnerability, the unseen emotional battles, and the heavy weight of expectations from ourselves and others. From Naomi's life and tragic passing, we learn vital lessons about empathy. Her experience reminds us to look beyond appearances and recognize that anyone, regardless of their success or status, may be struggling in silence. It highlights the urgent need to break down the stigma surrounding mental health, encouraging openness and compassion. Naomi's bravery in sharing her struggles publicly was groundbreaking and has helped many find the courage to speak their truths. Yet, the misunderstanding she faced shows how much more progress is needed. Naomi's legacy is enduring and multifaceted. It lives in the timeless music she created, songs that continue to comfort and inspire millions, and in the tireless advocacy of her daughters, Winona and Ashley. They have carried forward her mission to raise awareness about mental health, ensuring her voice continues to resonate far beyond the stage. Her influence also shines in every conversation that challenges stigma and every person empowered to seek help because of the path Naomi helped clear. Though marked by sorrow, Naomi Judd's story carries a message of hope. It reminds us that strength can emerge from pain and that understanding and support are essential. Her life encourages a world where vulnerability is met not with judgment but with love, compassion, and acceptance. Through this, her spirit lives on, inspiring us to care more deeply for one another's hidden struggles. And that's the end of today's video. Thanks for watching. If this content resonated with you, don't forget to like, share with others who appreciate thoughtful insights, and subscribe for more compelling explorations.